Thank you very much for showing up to see my presentation about declarative device management. I'm also supposed to have, I'm like, everything technical is going wrong here. Also supposed to have something on this screen, but we'll work at it. My name is Ulrik Aabye-Hansen. I run a two-man company with Kenneth, my buddy down there in the darkness. And we're called Talk Tech. We do mostly training. We love to talk about technology. We'll train in like any MDM for food, but we are also working a lot with Apple, and we are JAM certified training partners. Apart from that, a lot of people have mentioned they were foodies. I really love to cook food as well. I do also love to eat it, but love to cook food. I love to play music. I play the guitar and sing. And I'm a late bloomed gamer, you might say. I've gotten back into gaming at a very late age, but really enjoy that. And I know I share that with a bunch of people. So we're going to talk about declarative device management. And I thought it was fun to frame it in sort of a nostalgic setting, because sometimes we in IT, we fall into the trap of saying, this is the way we've always done it. And then we hold ourselves back from embracing new technologies that might be beneficial to everyone. So that's a really dangerous thing. But nostalgia also comes with some heartwarming moments. So I thought using Stranger Things that blew everyone back to the 80s a couple of years ago and just finished. I didn't watch the last season, so please no spoilers. So I'm going to use that as an analogy to explain the differences between legacy device management and declarative device management. So I'm going to start by just talking a little bit about the legacy framework. We don't like to call it the old framework. And then we're going to look at the new upside down. So upside down in Hawkins was a scary place, but in Apple's world, it's much better. It's a much nicer place to be. I'm going to venture into doing 3 demos with 3 different DDMs. So we do have proper sacrifices for the demo gods. That's very important. And then I want to finish up by saying, like, what's coming next? What can we do from here? And what should we be talking to our vendors about doing as well? So that's the plan. Now, before I dive into it, I just want to give a call out to Rich, who also did a talk at the Jamf Nation User Conference late last year. And I was in the midst of building my presentation when I saw this, and I was like, I don't want to do like a repeat of too much. And then I put up a poll in the Woowa app, and it turns out that still a lot of people do want sort of to understand the basics. So I thought, well, I'd use my normal theatrics to kind of make it understandable to everyone. So I did include a link to Rich's presentation. He goes really well into legacy MDM on a technical level as well, so I do encourage everyone to watch that. Also, I put links and everything into a little microsite I'm going to share with you towards the end. With that, let's dive into chapter 1. So to explain the legacy MDM framework, we're going to go into Mike's basement. It's late. It's Sunday afternoon, and the boys have been playing a wonderful game of Dungeons & Dragons, and now they're at the stage where they want to go out and play before they have a little plan to go to a diner later. I know, go out and play, it's something we did in the 80s. Like, it was a thing. So upstairs is Karen, Mike's mom, and she's like, sure, you can go out. I'll even give you some money to use for going out for a burger, but you left a mess downstairs. You got to clean up the basement, Mike, before you're allowed to go out and play with your friends. Cool, well that makes sense, except all the responsibility for seeing this task through in reality lies with Karen, Mike's mom. She has to walk down the stairs, like saying, oh, you guys, did you finish cleaning up the basement yet? She's like, obviously they didn't. And they're like, no, we got distracted. You know, boys, frontal lobes, no. She does that a couple of times. She goes down the stairs, checks, have you cleaned the basement? Do you not want to go out? Or what's the deal here? And eventually, at some point, It could be some point in the future, but we're going to assume later that afternoon. Yes, they have cleaned the basement, and she's like, all right, well, then you go. You're free to go to the BMX range or go out and play, and here's some money to use at the burger joint later. So that, in essence, is legacy MDM. Karen is our device management server, or MDM server, as we would call it. With legacy MDM, now more device management service. Mike is our devices, and the task of cleaning up the basement could be something like, could you please update to OS 26? And we're gonna need some sort of staircase to contact the devices, and that's where the Apple push notification service comes into play. And we have this, that's one of the limitations of legacy MDM, is this constant polling that's going on. The MDM server is the one responsible for asking the device to report their state. Did you update to OS 26? No, not yet. We were busy. The device's frontal lobes haven't apparently grown together either. At some point, they say, yeah, oh yeah, we got that brand spanking new OS. And then finally the management service can say, well, that's great, because I have a Wi-Fi configuration that's been waiting for you to get there, and finally you can have that. So all the responsibility is with the device management server. So there are a couple of challenges with this. It's not your MDM vendor's fault. It's not Apple's fault. This was built when it works, but there can be some consequences with scale. So for obvious reasons, Karen doesn't really trust the boys to clean up, so she has to go down and check again and again, constantly polling those devices. That's your server doing all that work. Walking up and down the stairs, every poll, every check. What's your state? Every time the server wants to figure out what's the state of the device, it has to ask. So that unknown state, it's okay for Karen's own basement, a couple of kids, but she might even be able to look after the neighbor's kids or something. But if there were 10,000 kids, 10,000 basement, 1,000 kids, it doesn't scale very well. There are three other terms, I guess, we can associate with this challenge. One is the latency. So we push out a new configuration profile, and it's in a queue. It hasn't reached the device yet. There is some latency between there. We've clicked save or send in the web interface, but the profile hasn't reached the device yet. So in very large environment, that latency could be minutes, maybe even hours in really big instances. Then we have drift. So even when a command is confirmed, the device reported back and says done, then a state can change. So VPN is dropped, the user uninstalls an app, uninstalls a profile, the server doesn't know. So there's drift from the last report. And then there's silence. No one is saying anything. We assume, or should we assume, that no news is good news if the device is completely unenrolled, or it's offline, or it's turned off? MDM server doesn't really know. No news is ambiguous at best. So these challenges all multiply at scale. Again, not the vendor's fault, not MDM, but everything about the new framework fixes these things. So that's the good news. We want to go to the next chapter, to the new upside down. And I think we need a little bit of audience participation. We also brought a little goodie bag with us. So it's quiz time. James said he really wants to run as much around the room as possible. I'm pretty sure I heard that. So I'm going to show you. James? Yeah, that's what I hear. So I'm going to show you a question, and I can't see anyone, so James, it is up to you. You can just pick anyone near you. If you think you know the answer, don't shout it out, but raise a hand. And then I have these little Stranger Things Funko Pop keychains that you get as a prize if you get the question right. So they are device management questions. And this one I stole from Rich's presentation. What OS was the first to have MDM. So acronyms become very important. Mobile Device Management was first introduced in what OS? Raise a hand if you think you know the answer. Kenneth, you're disbarred. You're disqualified.
iOS.
iOS what?
Wow.
So sorry, I should have been more specific. What iOS version? iOS what?
I think iOS 8.
It was not iOS 8. Any other guesses?
Oh, someone before you, sorry.
Was it 4?
It was 4. So do you prefer a Will or a Dustin? Oh, Will, all day Will. There we go. Excellent, excellent work. It was iOS 4. The next one, and we're moving along in technologies. What was the first Mac OS to support automated device enrollment, back then known as DEP, Device Enrollment Program? So it's good to have the crowd with me on this. It's next to impossible to see anything.
Yeah, but I'm fat.
Do Macadux people evaluate the speakers as well?
Was it Sierra?
It was not Sierra. It's not far away though. Yeah, if I go over time, it's my own making, I guess.
Was that High Sierra?
No, no. All right, we're gonna have to speed it up, and then we'll do something else. Oh, and I didn't even. It was Mavericks, 10.9. So first California landmark. Last one. In what OS was Declarative Device Management first introduced?
macOS Sonoma.
No. It was iOS. But what version?
4 years ago.
So count back.
Don't shout, put your hand up.
All right, obviously these questions were much too hard.
17?
No, it was 15. Well, I guess I'm going to take home all my Funko Pop, or maybe good questions after will be accepted as well. And now you may wonder, this was supposed to be a sacrifice to the demo gods, and that does not bode very well if I keep all my own sacrifices. We did have to pay for those sacrifices somehow, so I just want to thank our sponsor for the presentation. We are in fact sponsored by DDM. Not the DDM you may think, but we're sponsored by Declarative Duck Management. So just if anyone wants to keep their ducks in a row, you can reach out and hear more at 1-800-DUCK-YOU, and they're willing to help you really, really clean up anything you want. All right, so Declarative Device Management. I don't know, the whole duck thing, nobody did it. I thought you had to bring it into the presentation. Declarative Device Management. So the way that Apple describes it is it's not a new protocol, it's a new paradigm. We're re-envisioning the protocol. It was introduced in the Worldwide Web Developers Conference 21, iOS 15, so it was user enrollment only for that first year. So it's not thought as a new protocol. We are, it's been designed to make devices more autonomous, more proactive. So we want the kids to be able to make better decisions for themselves and report back to the parents. That means that it's going to perform much better and scale much better. It does, fortunately, work in combination with the existing management framework. So there has been put some thought into making that transition as painless as possible. And then just a practical thing, we are no longer using XML files as we were in configuration profiles. We've switched to JSON. So if you're watching the recording and you're a little rusty on JSON, I also did a presentation on that last year. You can watch that and then come back. We're not doing much with JSON here. So you might say, again, to make it a little easier, we're going from commands to declarations. We're going from do this now, and then to this is how it should be. A command compared to a declaration. So you might say do this now. The workflow is the server commands, the device executes, and then the server has to poll again to figure out if that command was received and executed properly. So instead, we're doing this is how it should be. Well, the server simply declares its state. This is what I want. This is how you should all behave. The device achieves it, and the device reports back. It's done. I did everything you asked. So you could compare this to Stranger Things and say, Karen, just post a note on the fridge and says, my house, my rules. And the kids, they show up, they read the note, and they follow the rules. I'm looking for declarative parenting. I think that should be a thing in the future. Talk to some people who can make that happen. So there are 3 components if we break it down. We have declarations. That's kind of what's going to seem most familiar. This is where everything from the legacy framework would go. But we also get 2 new things. We get status, which is how the devices can proactively update, and we get something called extensibility. So for time, extensibility, won't spend a lot of time on it, but basically Apple has included future-proofing into the framework. So it means that devices and servers can announce new functionality as it may come in the future. So we don't have to have Device Management Framework 3.0. So you might say in a couple of years when Mike gets older, he might get a driver's license, and he can then present that driver's license to his mom, and she in turn says, well, now you can have access to the family cars as a new resource, as a new asset. So that functionality can grow, so we are kind of trying to future-proof it. But the meat of it all is kind of in the declaration, so I just want to spend a little bit of time on that. We have 4 parts that have to be present in any declaration. The type of the declaration, an identifier, something called a server token, and then the payload itself, where like, what does this contain? The type is very much built like a bundle ID, so a dot-separated sequence of tokens, typically starting with com.apple, and then the type of declaration we are dealing with. So that could be things like an activation, it could be an asset, it could be management, or it could be a configuration. Again, configurations, they sound a little familiar, not configuration profiles, but a configuration declaration, I guess. Then we have different end types, so com.apple.configuration.assets would be different account types. com.apple.configurations.safari would be bookmarks and extension management for Safari. So that's kind of like the name of the declaration. The identifier, we're fairly familiar with this from legacy MDM. This is how we have a unique identifier to recognize a configuration profile from another. So if the same one arrives on the device, we know that it's an update to an existing and we need to replace the old one. Every once in a while, though, that could cause some disturbance, not in the force, but in the management, and the wrong profile could get sort of removed and the older one installed. So we have included a server token to kind of make sure that we have versioning as well. So even when the UUID of the identifier matches, we can differentiate between server tokens, and season 1, episode 2 would automatically replace season 1, episode 1. Now, the server token is also just a unique identifiers, just to stay in the analogy. So that's the identifier and the server token. Hopefully that will clear up some challenges that we had with identifiers in the legacy MDM. Then the payload. That's kind of where the meat is. So there are a bunch of different types of payloads. Configurations, again, that's kind of like everything we know from legacy MDM. Could be accounts, settings, restrictions, software update, and applications all belong in configurations. There's a management declaration as well. Assets is new, and activations is also new in this framework. So management, again, it's one of those things, it's a bunch of rules around the declaration. So this is where we can post organizational information, we can post the capabilities of the server, the capability of the devices, and the base of declarations that we have to work with in this system. So it's for establishing the whole management capability. Assets. This is a pretty cool upgrade from what we have right now. Assets are separated from the configuration. They can exist outside of the configuration. We're going to be looking at assets kind of divided into two different types: large data, so that could be images, a font suite, other types of archives. And in this case, the URL of the asset is going to be embedded in the configuration. So that means, because we're trying to make the new framework as efficient as possible, we can hand off handling of large data to services much better capable of handling something like that. So you could have a dedicated content delivery network that sort of manages your data. The other part is personal data. So things like email addresses, names, certificates, anything that is personally tied to a user, we can now manage that also outside of the configurations, keeping it more private, and we don't have to update the entire configuration. And I guess that's a couple of the other cool features. Assets have a one-to-many relationship. So if you have a certificate, for instance, that same certificate can be used in a security configuration and a Wi-Fi configuration if needed. Whereas right now, or in legacy MDM, a certificate has to be in the same configuration profile as your Wi-Fi payload, for instance. That also means that we can switch out assets without having to remove the configuration. So for instance, if we have a Wi-Fi, now this is the old type for managed Wi-Fi because there isn't, the declaration isn't like available yet. But theoretically, in the future, we could have a certificate that's expired in a Wi-Fi configuration, and normally we would have to send out a new configuration with a new certificate. That would remove the old one, and we lose connectivity. How do we then install the refresh one? But now we can exchange the certificate, but leave the configuration on the device. So that's another benefit of separating those things. And then the final thing is activations. This, I was hoping to try and figure out something where I could do it in a demo, but this is one of the things that, after talking to vendors, it dawned on me that this is really difficult how you're going to implement this in your device management system, but the idea is really clever. We can define how and when different configurations should be installed on devices. So an activation can sort of contain one or more configurations and potentially assets, and then the activation has some rules, what we call a predicate, that decides when this rule is met, this configuration is applied. So that's an activation. And it's all like, so it's like a big JSON file with configurations inside of it that would trigger in different states. But a lot of that same functionality right now exists in the MDM, sort of with dynamic groups. So that's going to be a fun one to see how, vendors are going to implement this. But just to do a little bit of analogy for this as well, this means that when the morning began, or in theory, the last time Mike spoke to his mom, she could have already given him access and permission to go out for dinner after they finished their game of Dungeons and Dragons. She could have given him money to spend. So that would be the configuration, the asset, money to spend. And she could even say, like, you can use this money for food or other incidentals. So in different situations, you could use those same assets. But then she also hands him a little note that says, now you can only do this once you've cleaned the basement. So that's the predicate. And the kids just do this. They not only do it, but they also report back to the server. And by kids, I mean the devices. They do this. They use a JSON status item report, a status report. That can be set up in different categories, so management states, device properties, other properties like accounts, apps that are installed, passcodes that are set, MDM installed apps, I said that already. And anytime something changes, they report it back to the server. The server does kind of a subscription to the different status items that the device provides. So yeah, basically that means that not only do the kids read and follow the rules, but anytime they do anything, Mike walkies it home and says, yes, we've cleaned the basement, we've gone to the park to play, and we're gonna go out to eat in a little while. That's pretty cool, I think, as well. All right. So, I'm gonna venture into a little demo. And I thought this was a good opportunity to, first of all, learn something new. I always challenge myself to kind of like deep dive on something like this. I need to figure out how something is working, go into the deep of it. I also come from an Apple training background, so if we mention one service, we mention 3 different services, and that's a good opportunity to look at 3 different device management vendors and how they have started to implement declarative device management. So I'm gonna show you a small demo using Aabye, a demo using Eru, and then a little bit more of a deep dive. GMF has something called custom blueprints. And while we cannot inspect JSON files on devices, they're not immediately visible in the same way that configuration profiles are. We can look at what we're sending out from the server if we do it with custom configurations. So that means I'm gonna switch here. Give me a second so you can see what I am doing. Let's mirror this. Am I mirroring to a Blackmagic? I am mirroring to a Blackmagic. That's good. Cool. So this is in Aabye. And there was a interesting, no, that sounds bad. There was a good decision. I think I probably got logged out here. There was a good, no, I didn't. There was a good decision to rename I think it was called MDM profiles to device settings. So if anyone saw the change management section this morning, of course, not everyone was happy with that sort of renaming. We know, but it makes sense. Like MDM profiles isn't very future-proof these days. And that kind of also shows the approach that Aabye has taken, is we want to make things look as familiar as possible, and then whenever there's a choice that we can't make for the user, we kind of guide them through it in the same place that they would normally do it. So if I go to the device settings, and I'm gonna create a new setting, I get a catalog, and it's not immediately visible to me here whether that would be a legacy configuration profile or a declaration. But by the way, I just want to call out that Aabye was really quick to add the new migration assistant. So this has nothing to do with migrating from one device management service to another. This is bringing the Mac up to par with transferring data from a previous device without letting the configuration profiles from the previous device management service interfere. So now you can use, similar to how it's now possible to use iOS device migration and it leaves out the configuration profile so you don't have any sort of management pollution, you can now configure Macs to do the same. And this was very recent in 26.4, I think. But I'm gonna keep it very simple. One of the early declarations to be made available by Apple was a passcode. And in some situations, you're gonna see vendors completely decide in the background, but it's not always possible. So with the passcode, not all the same keys are present in the declaration and the configuration profile. So you're gonna have to sort of guide the user gently in the correct step and offer them, yeah, you should do the recommended one, that's gonna be a declaration, but in case you know that you have some older devices or you're gonna scope something to older devices, we also still have the legacy settings in here. So we'll do it very simple. I'm gonna require a passcode. We will give it a minimum passcode length of 6. I set my phone to 4, which is not very much like me. And I'm gonna give it a automatic device lock of 5 minutes. I need to give it a name. I will give it Hawkins Tigers pass code. Because, of course, the Hawkins School has a team. Now, Selena, I'm sorry, I know you had all female sports teams, but in the 80s, wasn't really like as much gender representation as today, fortunately. So I will delete it as soon as I'm done with the demo. So I have this, and I can then assign that to a device. There we go. Let's see here. Let me go to assignments, and in North America, Indiana, we have the Hawkins Tigers. So now anyone in the basketball team should get this declaration on their device. Let's see how that is going. Dun, 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 dun. So if you haven't looked at declarations on devices, they're not completely in the same way, but we do still scroll down to General, and we do go down to VPN and Device Management, but then we click the main profile, and of course it's not been delivered yet. Oh, I know why. Sorry, I'm still a little new with Aabye here. I have to go into the device, and they have a pretty cool feature where you can sort of get everything ready, and then you can deploy it. So once everything is staged, let's say you wanted to do multiple commands, then you could deploy them, and that's going to be in my catalog as well. Dun, 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 dun. Device settings. No, I assigned it. All right, let me refresh the data here. Oh, that's update. Where's my deploy? Top right. This one? Oh, it is there. Declaration, there we go. Declaration to refresh. Oh, I thought I clicked the deploy update button earlier, so you can kind of stage all your configurations and then deploy everything at the same time. Let's see here. So the second I do that, it's pretty fast. So configurations have a separate location, and you can really go in and inspect them. And it's even a little prettier than in the configuration profile stage. We can see that what I said, require passcode. I can see minimum length and the maximum inactivity before my screen lock engages. Okay, then let me show you another example. So I think when possible, like sometimes again the keys don't match and you're going to have to ask the user to make an informed choice. Do you know what you're looking for? Sometimes in some situations it's going to be possible to sort of make the decision for the user. And this is something, for instance, that I liked about Eru. Sorry, I have an older instance that hasn't been updated. They did comment on it. But in many places, Eru tries to just let the user select what they want, and then they make the choice in the background. That's not always going to be possible, but a good example is managed software updates. So if you take a look at something like, we're going to do a managed Mac OS 26 Tahoe, there is nowhere in here where it states what sort of software update mechanism are we using. And it was the same even before we had declarative device management software updates, which was like the big change. Just as something like continuously enforce, we want to stay on a version that's within 3 weeks, we have to release, we have to be updated with a new release, 3 o'clock noon. I've set it to my Copenhagen time zone. So that means, it says down here that macOS 26.4.1 will be the minimum allowed version. Now it was hard to keep my computer at n-1, but let's see if I think I was successful. So I'll assign that. Here we have these blueprints that we're working with. Let's see, where is there, assign, and I have a group called DDMO. No, I'm not 100% sure if I put it in that or in my TalkTech demo. No, I didn't put it here. So I'll assign that to my group. I'm zoomed quite far in. Yeah, so just wanted to make sure it was there. I save that. And there we go. My wife is wondering how things went. You're a bit early. So I just opened this up because notifications are paused during Do Not Disturb. There we go. That was pretty quick. So managed update. Is that showing? Yeah, for April 30th. So pretty quick as well. And I just realized that I'm running low on battery. While I'm talking, I'm going to do this as well. Now the last one, time is running short, is I wanted to show using Jamf blueprints. And Jamf has taken the approach of completely moving everything into a separate section, into blueprints, which it has its pros and cons. Now you know that everything you're working with here is using modern framework, but it also puts some of the responsibility on the user to kind of start moving things over here and build it. However, you can do really granular stuff with something like blueprints. If I create a new blueprint, there is something called a custom blueprint. So I'm going to add a new library item here. I could search custom declarations, get started, and that allows me to put in configurations or assets, and I could say I want to push out a new application, for instance. Now I can tell from time I'm not going to be able to show everything, but I put a bunch of little script snippets in this little website, strangerstrings.uk. So what you have to do first, if you want to play around with this, is you need to generate a location in your Apple business. Now they're no longer called locations, I think, and download the VPP token, the S token. That will function like a bearer token if you do an API call. So you download that and you assign a license. The way you define that is we have a number called an Atom ID. You could also use the bundle ID, but an Atom ID defines an app from the App Store. So I'm basically doing an API call to the App Store framework saying I want to assign a license to this particular serial number, so my iPad here. Now, once you have that license, you can verify that the license has been successfully added, and you can install the app configuration. So let me grab that at least. I'm going to grab the type here and paste that into my blueprints. So it's a com.apple.configuration.app.managed, and my payload is here, going into blueprints, like that. So you see, we have the Atom ID. Oh, I also need to find my particular app. So I could have put that in there. So that's this one. There's that. And I need to put in a version. So this is one of the cool things of declarative apps is you can pin a specific version. So I did, in fact, contact the developer, and the latest version of this particular app is 1.6.1, and it has an external ID. I also put a snippet into the snippets into the page where you can look up information about an app and find that external ID. But I have an external ID from the developer, which is an older version, so 1.4.18. So you can decide and say like, yeah, that's the version we want to put out instead. So that's an integer, so it should be okay that it's green, representing sort of, there we go. And I'm going to need to do a scope here. And this time I do have my DDMO group. That should be, oh, and here we go, there's the deploy button. Maybe that's the deploy button I was looking for in Aabye. This is the challenge of doing multiple different device management services. All right, let's see. If it doesn't install immediately, I am going to continue for a time. 1 minute left. Oh, well, there we go. So very quickly, you can see that, oh, now I am doing the wrong computer here. This is on the iPad. If I go into VPN and device management, we can see under the profile that we have apps and, oh, that's not right. Configurations, here we go. There's the app. Passcode configuration and the Runestone text editor. And if I open this, now you have to trust me, I didn't have time to show you. You would have to see that the version was 1.4. Well, trust me on that one. And you can try this at home if you want to. All right. I'll do this very quickly. What next? What can we do? What is holding things back? I have to say that I was a little bit embarrassed because I was kind of like, I went on LinkedIn and said, come on, MDM vendors, get in the game. But talking to people, I realized it's difficult. It's a brand new technology. In the beginning, some things just didn't have full functionality. Sometimes things broke. And it takes time to adopt new things, of course. We also don't always have the same keys. So right now it's difficult. We could see that in Aabye. They have to give 2 different options. We can't all the time make that decision for the end user. So hopefully we'll see more alignment in the future so the end user doesn't have to worry about anything. And I think the most important thing to remember is, of course, we don't want to break anything existing. Vendors have a huge responsibility to the existing fleet. And we got to make sure that everything there works before we start fixing other things. So just consider everyone that Apple is not scared of deprecating things. I've tried to figure out if there is a deadline. Some people say 27, some people say no. Apple says it's not 27, but it's definitely going to happen at some point that configuration profiles have an end. And for all of us, make sure when that is announced, maybe at Worldwide Developer Conference this summer, we will hear a deprecation date. We need to hold the vendors to responsibility and make sure they have a process for taking over. So I've also shared a link that Bryce Carlson from Aabye shared with me, where Cyrus, who's like one of the main responsible guys for Declarative Device Management from Apple, he describes the process of taking over a configuration profile on device and wrapping it in a declaration so your devices don't suddenly fall out of management. So that's important to, at some point when we have a date, look into that and make sure we're ready. Apple's upside down is a beautiful place. It's not as scary as Hawkins. And it's more reliable, faster. We want to go there. It's the future. The basement has already been cleaned, and Mike already called in the information that they've gone out to play. So the only question going forward is whether Karen is listening or she passed out on the couch because she was too tired from walking up and down the stairs all the time. Thank you very much for listening.